Am I reading into this way too much because I have an extreme online problem, or is there something to it?
All right, I'm listening.
All right, I'm at GoHeels.com, and here's an Adam Lucas column on the returns of Armando Bacot and R.J. Davis. Lucas, times have changed. College basketball roster management has changed, and Carolina has openings to fill. All right, cool. So here's a picture. I see Armando Bacot. I see R.J. Davis. Their backs turned to the camera with their names. I'm looking. I see Leaky Black in this photo. You know who I don't see in this photo? I don't see Caleb Love in this photo.
Okay.
You know who I don't see quoted in this story or referenced upon a quick skim, but really it's about Armando Bacot and R.J. Davis. And the way GoHeels.com works is that they reference you. They usually put a hyperlink to you. Mm-hmm. So I see a hyperlink to Leaky Black and Pete Nance, even one for Hubert Davis. I see one for Armando Bacot and R.J. Davis. R.J. Davis again. I do not see any mentions of Caleb Love. Should I read into that?
Of course you should. I think let's hash all of this through, right? The Armando Bacot, R.J. Davis, and Caleb Love all have the ability to come back and play another season of college basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bacot, the center of the team. We've talked a little bit about this. You want good college basketball players who will stay and play college basketball, who don't necessarily have a future in the NBA. That's a good thing for college basketball. Mm-hmm. You're seeing that with Drew Timme, Marquise Noel at Kansas State. There's not a lot of room in the NBA for 5'8" guards.
Who has been the star, but he's been the star of the NCAA
19 times last night.
He's been
Drew
a star.
Timme, 30-plus points last night, right? Last year, Bacot was a star in March as well. DJ Burns at NC State is another example. Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton, another example of a guy who probably doesn't have an NBA future, but you could build a really good college basketball team around. R.J. Davis is a smaller guard who I could see playing in the NBA eventually, but is a smaller guard who has some limitations, but is a good college basketball player. Caleb Love, in my opinion, hit the second biggest shot in the history of Carolina basketball. I put Michael Jordan number 1. I put his shot over Mark Williams and Duke in the Final Four last year, number 2. Okay.
Shout out to Kennedy Meeks, who had the biggest block.
But shot.
Okay. The block, that goes to Kennedy Meeks.
Kennedy Meeks, different. Caleb Love, in my opinion, has his place in North Carolina history.
Mm-hmm.
Has his place. He came back this year, which I thought was a mistake, because I thought his value was such that he would have been a first-round pick last year. Okay. It's easier to say these things in hindsight, but I believe I did say it after the Final Four last year, and I was actually surprised when he came back, because a guard of his size does have value at the pro level.
Mm-hmm.
He came back. He had a difficult season. He shot the basketball poorly. Fundamentally, was his game different this season than the previous season? Not exactly. He runs hot, he runs cold.
Mm-hmm.
He does hit big shots. He just didn't hit them this year.
No.
Okay? But fundamentally, his game didn't change.
I mean, did we not see we really saw the bookends to this, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw the shot over Duke.
And then he missed against Duke in the game in the Smith Center this year.
Which they needed to help get in the NCAA tournament. They did.
So one thing with Carolina, they're always, you see it now. Unless you do something, unless you go full Rashad McCants, North Carolina is always going to embrace you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Caleb Love will always have a place at Carolina. That being said, I don't think anyone is speaking out of turn when they say a lot of people expected Armando Bacot to come back. He did. A lot of people, those same people expected R.J. Davis to come back. He did.
Mm-hmm.
All of the same people expect Caleb Love to play basketball somewhere else next season.
Yes.
The question for Caleb Love is, does he go back home to St. Louis or Missouri or a school in the Midwest, and where he really has a chance to play close to home and really showcase all of his skills, where he's not sharing a backcourt with anyone, and then go to the NBA? Or does he try to go to the NBA, probably a second-round pick at this point, if that, play in the G League and make money? Or you can always go overseas and make a ton of money. You can make a great living playing basketball elsewhere. I do think his time at Carolina is up.
Yeah.
And these are all honest conversations that people have behind closed doors. Carolina is a school that has always excelled at PR. Always. Okay? And when I say that, the Russell Wilson situation that we did a 6-part podcast that you can find, never failed, the Russell Wilson podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. that never would have happened at UNC.
No.
Ever.
No.
Because they know how to handle messaging at Carolina. And how they handle this situation will be a test of that. But I promise you, they won't badmouth him on the way out. They won't say boo when he decides to do something else. And then the truth of the matter is, the conversation probably was, Caleb, I think it's time for you to play somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Will Peter King in 20 years be telling us the story of how Hubert Davis called Caleb Love and said, "Sorry, son, you just can't play here anymore"? No, I don't think that's going to happen.
That's not going to happen. No, I
don't think that's going to happen because Carolina, again, knows how to handle their business. But I would be willing to bet healthy portions of my salary that a conversation, an honest two-way conversation has been had with Caleb Love. And I can tell you the expectation is he is not going to play for North Carolina next year. That is the expectation within that program.
I'm with you on that. And
you know what? That's fine.
It's perfectly
It's absolutely fine. He still has his place in Carolina history.
Of course.
And I hope the Carolina fans who were mad at him this year understand that.
Look,
he still has a great shot. He has still great moments for that school. And he still owns those moments. You can't take them away from him, even if now he's not going to go play for Duke, but if he goes to play for St. Louis or Missouri next year
State.
and has a great year and ends up in the NCAA tournament, you should applaud him. You should root for him.
Sure. Now, here's the thing about the PR. I don't disagree with you. I mean, I started the conversation out pointing out Adam Lucas's column on GoHeels.com, the official website, where they can just kind of like, we've shout out to Luke DeCock for the 1984 references that he and I have been going back and forth on. We've always been at war with Eurasia, okay? So they can kind of like 1984 this bad boy, and that we're like, no, we don't talk about that. It's all good. And then they'll go from there. This is all calculated in the way that these announcements are coming out. They're not the only school that does this. But here's my concern. My concern when it comes to North Carolina, not the school, not Hubert Davis, who's trying to, one way or the other, drag North Carolina into where college basketball is right now, even if it's going to be very, very difficult for fans to accept that how things. I mean, that's the entire art. That was the whole point of Adam Lucas's column. It's to tell the old heads, guys,
without reading it, sounds suspiciously like what I told them whatever day that's what it.
No, you're right.
Kind of what it sounds like.
No, you're absolutely right.
Me.
It's almost like we've been.
I don't like it when it comes from you, Giglio. But it's okay when it comes from Adam Lucas.
I mean, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. Honestly, it's the same conversation that's had when we talk about some professional teams. It's like, whoa. We can say that, but you can't. Just because we talk about it in hushed circles doesn't mean you can say it out loud on the radio. Right. Okay? So that's not new to me. But here's my concern with UNC and Caleb Love and the conversation going forward. It's going to be overly simplified as to what their issues were last year. And, without Caleb Love and the Love roller coaster, and we talked about it, like shout out to Bart, who says, like, haven't North Carolina fans been having this conversation about as Caleb Love goes or what Caleb Love does ultimately decides what UNC is going to do? And like, well, now that's taken out of the equation and these guys can play within whatever offense they want to do. That's an oversimplification of some of the things that have been going on at UNC the last couple of years. That still doesn't take away from the bench minutes. If Caleb Love was as much of a liability as some people want to make him out to be, well, then why did he continue to play as many minutes as he did up until late in the year? Remember, in that Duke game in Chapel Hill, it did get to a point where Hubert Davis took him off the court, and he threw out some different lineups to kind of get things going for the Tar Heels. But why did it take until the last game of the year? So there are some questions about bench development, what the rotation is, all valid things to point out that we'll see if Hubert Davis bringing in the guys that he wants from the transfer portal will alleviate some of those issues. So it's simply
and what a great base to start with, by the way.
Oh no, it's
Bacot
an amazing
Davis.
Yes. And that ultimately is why the point of let's see how this offseason plays out is the right way to go about it. But I think two things can be true at once. Having that great base is the first start.
Yeah.
Now, the second part of this is bringing in the guys that you feel can run whatever it is you want to run at UNC, and you trust these guys that you've brought in to develop as a bench and rotations and start out the year that you see like typically, and then things pare down as it goes on to a 7-guy rotation. So just don't oversimplify what happened. And there's a tendency to be like, well, now that what we viewed as the issue is gone or potentially gone, then I'm going to be back on board. No, there's a lot of other things that are at play here that, for Hubert Davis's sake, I hope he gets them understood. And